Rewind the Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
It is John Pollock and Wai Ting coming at you to chat about Dynamite from Rogers Place, which is kind of our nickname for pretty much any corporate structure in this country.
Every building,
centers, arenas, places, Rogers is usually on it, if not Bell.
Are you buying a ticket to a place? It's probably owned by Rogers.
Odds are everything Rogers, they've got you by the balls. Well, we are going to be getting into all things Dynamite. Wai, are you still doing good?
I'm still doing well. Just as I was almost 40 minutes ago when we started our XL edition talking about a lot of the top stories of the day.
Well, we had to because there's been a bunch of changes to WrestleMania weekend. If you're a TNA performer, today was not a fun day as you found out about your bookings for the biggest weekend of the year. We went over all of the changes involving Moose, involving Leon Slater, and even affecting Nick Nemeth for Create a Pro. A lot of chaos going on in the independent ranks. So a big discussion there. We went through both cards for WrestleMania Night 1 and 2 that were released on Tuesday morning. Injuries to Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez from Monday night's Raw. Wai gave us a breakdown of Tony Khan on the Coach and Bro podcast from this past week. We have a big rating from SmackDown to discuss, NXT, and Pat McAfee. All that wrapped into the XL portion of Rewind to Dynamite.
Yeah, I wanted to maybe take the time to update everybody. We do have an ongoing poll going on for our next edition of Rewind Away. And of course, at last check, I mean, it was very close and it continues to be very close. We actually have one more week to go before we announce our winner. And do you have any guesses, John, about what might be in the lead? Our choices, again, are, of course, WCW, Spring Stampede 1994, featuring Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair, WCW Uncensored 1995, the bad WCW show on this list.
I wish Ricky Steamboat was on that first Uncensored card. That would have been perfect.
ROH at Our Best, featuring CM Punk versus AJ Styles and Louis Theroux inside the Manosphere. And I can report at this moment that in the lead, we have WCW Spring Stampede 1994 at 28%. That is followed by, at 27%, Louis Theroux inside the Manosphere. So neck and neck with that. The former leader of this since, from about a week ago was WCW Uncensored 1995. That is currently sitting at 24%. And then at the very end here, still having a chance, but at the bottom is at 21%, ROH at Our Best. So 7 days left to vote. And all of our paid and also free tier patrons over at postwrestlingcafe.com have the chance to vote. But the podcast will be recorded a few days after WrestleMania weekend. And then we will release all of that for our paid patrons, which everybody should join right now for this month ahead of our WrestleMania week, of course.
That is right. Jump on board, postwrestlingcafe.com. Your access on the cafe will include all of our WrestleMania week coverage. We're going daily beginning next Monday for all of WrestleMania week. We're going to be going live each day at 1 Eastern time. We're going to have some guests joining us. We have some theme shows. We're going to be doing plenty of coverage of any and all WrestleMania week events, and we'll be going live here on the YouTube channel both nights after WrestleMania. And we've also got quite a bit post WrestleMania. There is, of course, the Hulk Hogan Netflix doc series that is coming out shortly thereafter. We're going to be doing some coverage of that. So it's a great month to join on board at postwrestlingcafe.com. And while we're at it, Thursday, we're putting out the Ask Away mailbag show. You can get your questions in now before we do the show Thursday at forum.postwrestling.com. Go to the Ask Away thread, post your question, and that show is coming out Thursday. Always a enjoyable show when Wai and I put all the power in your hands and we just go by what is asked of us.
50% off right now for all new members, whether you want to join our regular or double tier. So you can either get in for $4 or as high as $6 whole to get the whole double entree instead of including daily post wrestling news updates from John Pollock, Jack Wan, and Neil Flanagan, and also of course this month's edition of Book Club. So thank you to everybody who's already taken advantage of the sale so far. We hope you guys enjoy the ride for the rest of the month.
And we go to Edmonton, Alberta tonight for the final Dynamite before Dynasty this coming Sunday. We will go over the pay-per-view a bit later when we do the feedback section. But tonight, WrestleTix last number, 3,760. They were last here at Rogers Place 2 years ago on May 8th for an edition of Dynamite that did just under 4,600 tickets distributed. Now, there was a change to the card where Brody King was removed after guitarist for Harm's Way, Bo Loiters, who died earlier this week at the age of 38. He was part of the hardcore punk band Harm's Way out of Chicago, and Brody King was attending his funeral. So Brody King was replaced by Bandido in the six-man that was opening the show. So condolences to those affected there. We also, before we go into this, Triller is advertising the fact that Dynasty this Sunday will not be available live. If you order it on Triller, you will not get it until 12:01 a.m. And I checked multiple regions, and this is the case. And this is the slow goodbye. I don't know why AEW basically doesn't just tell Triller we don't want. Like, how can you tell me to go to my AEW more clearly than this?
Well, I have to assume some people already purchased this, maybe. Or
I'd
maybe
be pissed if I had pre-ordered this and I'm
Yeah.
getting this on tape. Though. Like, certainly, I guess you can get a refund, but that would be a joke if you had pre-ordered this and then you're being told, yeah, you've got to wait till like 5 hours after the pay-per-view starts to watch this on a Sunday night.
I'm curious if there are regions that don't have access to my AEW that can only access it through Triller, but I mean, whatever the case, I mean,
Yeah, this is on tape delay in Canada, and can we order pay-per-views in Canada on my AEW?
I believe that's all we can do on my
That's
AEW.
all we can do. Okay, got it. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just the slow migration that they are clearly making, and it just does not feel... The other issue I had with Triller was tonight at 10:15, while Omega was doing his promo, boom, the show just ended for me, and I tried reloading it. There was no extended portion to this. So mid-promo, it ended, and I did not get to see whatever ended the show.
This is a very long, what do they call that? Overrun. You know, this is like a half-hour overrun that we got tonight. So I'm sure
it went a half hour.
Yeah, dude.
Oh,
like
so I missed like 15 minutes.
Well, I don't know how much of the Kenny promo you saw, but like
I got up to it went 2 hours and 15 minutes was the runtime on the show.
The show ended pretty much at like 10:27. So
okay,
it was very, very yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to lean on you. I've seen nothing of those last 13 minutes. So, all right, we start off. So Ospreay and Moxley are brawling in the parking lot, and Wai and I had a discussion on Monday. We're like, okay, this United Empire Death Riders. I mean, are we thinking Forbidden Door, Anarchy in the Arena? And I was just about to say, hey, Wai, how about Dynamite?
How about Edmonton, Alberta, Canada?
And Wai would have said, well, when are they going to advertise? You don't advertise that in advance. You just do it right away here at the beginning.
I had no issue with this not being advertised. Number one, it's not okay. Like I think the United Empire are really cool, and like the idea of a United Empire versus Death Riders is certainly really cool. I don't think it's the type of attraction that'll get people like necessarily tuning in, but as a surprise, I think it's a magnificent surprise.
Yeah, I can see the arguments for and against. I know tomorrow there is going to be the whole "who are these guys" debate that will come out, and that is going to be a talking point that people will have here. Now, to say that though, you have to ignore how supercharged this crowd was for this match. They were super into this.
So
and
like
everyone, like these United Empire guys came in like to work their asses off, and they did.
I'm often somebody who would suggest that AEW could do more to introduce certain people. In this case, I don't think it mattered because the only introduction you needed here is that these are Will Ospreay's friends. They're Will Ospreay's friends from home, or they're Will Ospreay's friends from his old school. All right, and that's all the introduction you need. He's fighting this gang, the Death Riders, and he's brought his bros from Japan. And that's kind of all the backstory necessary. You know, let the fighting do the introduction in and of itself.
I still think there's a good shot that this could be Anarchy in the Arena.
Yes, I agree. Especially after like how well tonight came across. I mean, we don't know when Forbidden Door is, but this lines out a lot potentially for Forbidden Door as well.
So we get this big brawl with the United Empire, and they're all here in like suits. They had a really cool look here, great like dichotomy here between the Death Riders and the United Empire. Windsor and Marina Shafir are also heavily involved as they have the pre-show match. Akira leapt off a car. Hanare, who I thought was amazing on this show, slams Yuta onto the trunk. Like, to me, Hanare might have been the biggest standout because his look, his fire, his intensity was like, you want to talk about a guy getting over without saying a word. That was Hanare tonight.
I would say the same for Francesco Akira, John. Like, those two happen to be the standouts to me. And I just like...
I just don't think that this guy's ever going to do another table spot again, because tables do not agree with him in this country.
Yeah, maybe Francesco Akira and tables need to take a break, pun intended. But those two were treating this like it was the biggest platform that they've ever had.
Oh, I think all of them did, Way. Like, they all came in here like, this is a huge shot to make a mark for ourselves. And they probably thought coming in, like, we're not going to be known by everybody here, and we have to just number one, just wow everybody for that fact. And number two, if you are building this for an Anarchy in the Arena, we've got to give them the greatest appetizer of all time. And I don't think you could ask for much more than what we got at the end of this show.
I think they were fighting for jobs in AEW, and
well, I don't know how that really helps our New Japan perception when our IWGP champion is going on a monster for
well, it's just like TNA and WWE. If you get airtime on WWE television, you get over, you're probably getting signed. I would say similarly for people in New Japan. Callum Newman maybe being the exception. I don't know how long of a commitment he's got with New Japan, but I mean I hope they sign him to a long-term deal.
So big brawl here to start. It was funny because several times during the match and with this, like Newman's double stomp is called the Excalibur. So you had Excalibur, but he didn't call it Excalibur, and I was so disappointed. I was like, oh, this is like the perfect crossover spot. Then right before the show went on, they announced that the TNT Championship is vacant. They confirmed Kyle Fletcher's injury, and unfortunately, Tony Khan stating he's going to be out for months. And there will be a casino gauntlet on Dynasty on Sunday, and tonight Ciampa faces Mascara Dorada to determine the number one entrant. Obviously, a big blow. This guy is among the very best in the world at this point, and it's a terrible injury, terrible time as always, but it's
hopefully it's not the type of injury that is has him out for so long. I mean, the worst time on the calendar would be ahead of All In, right? And hopefully he can at least be back for that. He's at the point now where he's achieved so much that I think like you can miss him with him being gone, and in effect, it could potentially help him and help his status if they make the return feel big.
He's got 5 months until All In. Like you would hope that this is something he can get back for in time for that show, of course. And then Don Callis responds to the injury and basically says we were going to do Proto-Kata against the Young Bucks at Dynasty. Now that's off, but we're going to pivot. And we have a match that will blow your minds. And he started comparing Okada and Takeshita to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, with him as Phil Jackson. And that, yes, sometimes teammates don't get along, but he likes that. And he states that these two, everyone's been asking, why haven't they had another match yet? Well, you're not getting another match between these two, which meant you're getting this match sooner than later. And he might just take the MJF money and grab Connor McDavid like it's 1984, if you know what I mean.
No, I don't. What does he mean?
So someone's going to correct me. Like, I would think that in Edmonton, you would be
like Gretzky.
Yeah, but Gretzky didn't leave for the Kings until much later than 1984. I mean, he was kind of in his peak in 84 with the Oilers. Like, I would think you're playing like Bruce McNall and you're going to take Gretzky away from Edmonton.
I'm sure he meant Gretzky.
I'm sure it's a Gretzky reference here.
Yeah. But maybe he got the year.
For the love of God, do not message me. Okay. I don't care. Darby Allin, Jack Perry, and Bandido against Takeshita, Mark Davis, and Andrade El Idolo. Andrade runs to the back, and Darby calls him a little bitch and goes after him. Andrade took a selfie. We get the heat on Perry. Perry manages a poison Rana, but then gets tripped up by Andrade from the floor. Darby hits a big tope. And then Davis and Takeshita take Darby by the feet and arms and just swing him over the timekeeper's area, and plop, just lands there. And they beat the hell out of Perry, ending with a deadlift pile driver and the DM, and pin Jack Perry in 11 minutes and 38 seconds. They really just left Jack Perry for dead here to just get annihilated. Clean win for Andrade, and moving toward the Darby match at the pay-per-view.
Right, yeah.
Not really protecting Jack Perry for the Marco stunt tag at Mania Weekend. No mentions of KJ Orso or Sam Stackhouse. I was waiting for them to run in Edmonton as well.
I thought this was fun, a lot of fun. You know, like essentially you got three big guys taking on three small guys, and it's interesting to think like how a Brody King would have like affected the dynamic. But the fact that they had Jack Perry in his place, Darby Allin in his place, like allowed the baby faces to look like just entirely undersized compared to the Don Callis family, and I thought it made for like a really fun dynamic. Mark Davis especially stands out in a match like this where you could just like toss a Darby Allin around. So they continue to book him like with a lot of credibility, despite not necessarily having the best win-loss record. But like in this instance, for he did much of the heavy lifting here ahead of the finish, with Andrade just kind of coming in, taking the pin.
They continued the attack on Perry as Darby is trying to stand up to Andrade and gets kicked in the balls. The Young Bucks run down, fighting off Davis and Takeshita, and out comes Lance Archer, El Clone, Hechicero, and they super kick the three. BTE trigger is delivered to Davis, and then they set up Takeshita for the Meltzer driver, which Okada stops. And it allows Takeshita to drop Matt, and for a few seconds, Okada and Takeshita are working together against the Bucks, and then they go chest to chest, and they start attacking. As Callis watches on, the Don Callis family members step in between them. The Rascals are out, executing dives onto everyone. The big one reserved for Myron Reed, who jumps onto Okada because Reed is going for Okada's international title on Collision, which they note Myron Reed is undefeated in singles action thus far in AEW. So
he's got to beat Okada, of course. Yeah.
I think the streak ends for Okada's reign. I think that's the clear outcome we're going to get in Edmonton.
Yeah, of course.
It's not announced here, but yes, we are getting the Bucks against Okada and Takeshita.
Yeah, that's an awesome match on paper.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, it's a great pivot. I Tony, I'm sure there's story, but like for him, I think it's the wrestling and the card first. You know, what looks the most attractive, and and then we'll write a story that'll kind of like take us there. But in this case, I thought they managed to satisfy everything. Like they ultimately, this Proto-Okada feud pairing was to further the Takeshita Okada program anyway. So to continue to get us there, but now actually having Okada and Takeshita pair together against the Bucks, I mean that's one of the most attractive matches on the card now.
Backstage, Lexi Nair is with Dr. Michael Sampson for my favorite explanation of the year. Michael Sampson is asked about Kenny Omega's condition that MJF revealed last week. Sampson says, well, yes, Kenny had some post-surgical complications, but he's cleared. I cleared him. He's ready to go. I think that Max is just trying to get into Kenny's head. And that was that. If ever there was a retconning of a segment, this was it. Kenny is not going to burst into flames in front of your eyes, as was laid out last week by MJF. That was pretty much what this segment was.
I thought this would be some sort of tease of like something later that would, I don't know, like add a bit more to this, but you're right. Like there was nothing to this other than to perhaps like protect the sort of credibility of their wrestling
How
doctors.
Stupid this segment was last week to explain this guy could die at any minute.
So yes, it was a stupid. It maybe took you out of the believability of it, but here it seemed they seemed to walk it back entirely.
He was completely walked back.
He's not even hurt. You know,
he's in the best shape of his life, is what Sampson said. It's the complete opposite of what the segment detailed last week.
So they even took it away as a plot point in the match. So I mean, I don't know if they needed to go this far to completely wipe it off the board.
Well, they went too far last week. Like, you could have just said that, like, there's
MJF.
wording it in such a way that you could die at any moment. You're a ticking time bomb. Like, it was so over the top ridiculous. And yeah, it made AEW look preposterous. Like, I thought last week's segment was one of the more ludicrous AEW stories in a long time.
He might have overstated it, but the idea that you could still have, a sensitive injury to work over, I think could have still been at play. But with this, and also with Kenny's promo later, they don't even want to, attacking the ribs to be any sort of significant moment in the match.
So a miraculous recovery over the last week for Kenny. Next week,
I've never seen this. This to me is on similar level as like having to explain the invisible camera with like too much verbiage. They shot a whole segment just to protect their doctor from looking
on their
really
go home
dumb.
episode. They were like, This needs to be on the broadcast. This is not going to be on YouTube. This needs to be on the show. We need to explain he's not going to die. Yeah. So next week they're in Seattle, and it's going to be themed as a spring breakthrough, which will be the Mania week. So they've got. So is Collision airing on the Saturday next week? I should check this.
No, it's Thursday.
Oh, it's
Thursday next week.
Okay. No, well, that's good. Willow Nightingale and the returning Queen Aminata for the TBS Championship. Aminata's been out since October with a neck injury, and at the beginning, Willow's almost surprised at how aggressive Aminata's coming at her. And you had Hikaru Shida looking like the most bored wrestling fan in this crowd as they did cutaways to her all night or all match long with her kendo stick.
I'm sure she's trying to look intense or like brooding as if she's contemplating a heel turn. But I mean, yeah, she's probably nervous more than anything.
Well, Aminata hits a PK, and then after 5 long months, it's the return way of chocolate kisses.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a cannonball off the apron by Willow, and then they get into a striking exchange. Aminata headbutts her, lariat from Willow. Both are down, and Aminata avoids the Babe with the powerbomb, hitting an air raid crash, and the crowd is getting more into this, but Willow rebounds, pounce, Babe with the powerbomb, and wins in 11 minutes and 6 seconds. Shida continues to not look impressed, and then Willow and Queen Aminata shook hands at the end of this, and I would say for a first match back, I would say Aminata performed very well here, and the audience got into this match as well.
Agreed. They had a great crowd in Edmonton. I mean, like,
yes,
cheered, like made a lot of noise for this match. Made a lot of noise certainly for the United Empire. So
they're excited. They thought Kenny might die tonight, and they just got great news a few minutes ago. So celebratory atmosphere.
I agree with you. Like for a 5-month layoff, I thought Queen Aminata didn't look bad at all. This is a high pressure match, to be in really in any circumstance, much less coming back after that long of an injury. She has like a very hard hitting standard to live up to, and I thought she did well here. She of course like enters this match with like no benefit of promo or story. She had like a 1 minute video with Ian Riccaboni on social media prior to this, and then a tweet, and that was really kind of all she got. But
they were like, do we do the Queen Aminata comeback from a neck injury story or Michael Sampson?
But this seems to be like part of the AEW playbook. You just announce somebody like for a match, you put them out in the match, and then you build a storyline afterwards. And that seems to be what they're doing with Hikaru Shida. So this is now twice in a row that Willow Nightingale has beaten returning wrestlers, right? And in Shida's case, there's a tease of a heel turn. I wonder if there'll be the same with Aminata.
Next segment, out comes Jericho, as the graphic reads, although he's clearly identified by Excalibur as Chris Jericho, and is what the contract also reads. Chris Jericho.
The Dynasty graphic also shows him as Chris Jericho.
Yeah, so I like, what is this?
I don't know. Dude, I have no idea.
Anyway. He has his new AEW contract and mentions that he's only a few miles away from Ponoka, where he wrestled his very first match in 1990 with Lance Storm at the Moose Hall in Ponoka. And he spoke about joining AEW as a risk in 2019, proud of how big it's become. And he's taken many risks in his career, but I've also had some stinkers. But I always did things for the right reasons because I love pro wrestling. I got into the best shape I could for this return, and it doesn't matter where I'm on the card or if I'm even on the show. I'm here to build AEW, and the crowd they were chanting for him here. It was a positive reception that he had, and then is interrupted by the demand, and Ricochet dumps on Canada, warns Jericho not to sign this contract nor return, and says, while you've been busy singing karaoke with your little band, he said, there's a difference between being in sing shape and ring shape. And he is the man now. Attendance is up. Ratings are up. The Dash study has done wonders for our overall audience. 18 to 49 demo. We're still feeling that
Have
big
you
data
seen our
plus
Have you
panel
seen our
crunch.
cage match ratings lately?
I mean, Cage Match is just about to go through a huge surge of interest, I'm sure. And he says, nobody wants you here, so go back on your cruise ship before you get hurt. And Jericho mocks him for being bald, which the crowd was already chanting, and says, I don't give a shit what you think. Signs the contract, but he's got a clause in the contract. And no, it does not mean that if I take time off, there won't be time tacked on at the end of this contract. No, the clause is he can pick his opponent for Dynasty, and he chooses Ricochet, and then reveals underneath the clipboard, it is the return of the list of Jericho, as Ricochet makes the list. And this got a big pop from the crowd. They all recognized a 10-year-old joke, and he had his cousin in the front row who he went up to afterward.
So before he signed, he says, I could pick anybody. I could even pick Conor McGregor himself.
Did he say McGregor?
He said Conor McGregor.
Oh my
unfortunately.
God. That's amazing.
course-
I mean, he could...
Of course, he was looking for Conor McDavid, the
Yes.
Oilers captain. But
maybe he could he'll just no sell it. Be like, of course I meant Conor McGregor. That's great. Good catch by you. I thought for sure he said McDavid.
Yeah. So I mean,
Because it didn't get a pop either, and that makes more sense why it
Everybody's
didn't. Because I was just more reacting like, it's like, wow, that seemed like an easy pop, and it didn't register. So I should have listened closer.
I mean, so we have a bit more. It's a very. I'm sure that it's not the first time that mistake has been made. So we get a bit more clarity on like what this iteration of Chris Jericho actually is. Maybe it is Chris Jericho doing the greatest hits. Last week was him coming out, really not saying much, similar to, you know, one of his comebacks in the past.
Yeah.
This week he brought up the list. And so it makes you wonder if is next week, is he going to say like, you know
You know
never,
what? He's going to
ever.
show up at Dynasty as Super Liger.
I don't know if that was a hit, John.
That was one of the stinkers.
Yeah. Like maybe next week he'll show up in a suit, you know, perhaps like he just sort of like play the many faces of Chris Jericho.
You don't see this list being something he's bringing back. You see it as just he's just playing with the stuff. Yeah.
Knowing Chris Jericho, it's just not like him.
This
to
is the
just-
antithesis of what
Yeah.
Jericho is, of like just going back to old stuff. Like you're
Exactly.
probably right. Like with the muted gimmick last week, and then, you know, just running through all of this.
And doing these babyface gimmicks now works because you're in Canada and you can rely on the Canadian pop anyway. So I would anticipate this to continue throughout the Canadian dates, maybe until he gets to the US when he starts inserting a bit more of the heel stuff in. I'm just
Well,
I'm just
that's next
speculating.
week. So
Are they
they'll-
not? Are they not sticking around at all, or are they?
no,
they're
it's just
done?
Vancouver, and then it's Seattle next week.
Okay, so I guess we'll see. But hard to turn heel against Ricochet, of course. So I'm then maybe I don't really know. But I think as a fresh way to reintroduce Chris Jericho at this stage, when things you can argue are probably like I don't know, like the most negative for his sort of perception within this audience. I think it's a good way to like, you know, come back with a bit of buzz. You know.
Week 2 came across way better than week 1, I thought.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lexi Nair, who was doing all the interviews tonight, there was no Renee. She interviews the Don Callis family, and Callis says that Andrade is going to put Darby into the dirt and then get a title shot. And this is where he reveals Okada and Takeshita against the Bucks. Takeshita refuses the match, and Callis says, Kyle is on death's door. We need to come together for him. And says, well, he wants Okada's belt. So Callis says, fine. If you two can work together, then you can challenge for the belt. Get this out of your systems. But he makes them shake hands. And then Okada, I'm your Pippin. I'm Jordan.
Okada, I think, is the king of the one-liner.
He's
in
very
AEW.
good.
He's so good at it. So who's Dennis Rodman?
I was going to say, I think that Francesco Akira was Steve Kerr.
Okay, I'm sure he'll join the Don Callis family at some point.
He was my guy on the Bulls.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Dennis Rodman will be the Dennis Rodman of the Don Callis family. Watch, after this Hall of Fame, he'll just pop up and
Maybe he'll get invited next week to Seattle. I mean, does this title match open up Dynamite next week?
Possibly. Maybe
There's no way they're holding off on this till Double or Nothing. They just it's not in their blood to hold off on something that long.
Yeah, maybe they'll throw it to the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show.
Okay, that's another option.
That's a great make good.
Yes, along with Jericho versus Conor McGregor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ciampa and Moscar Dorada. Winner gets into the Casino Gauntlet first. I would love one of these where at the end the loser is number 2 in the end in the Casino Gauntlet. There's a tornillo over the top by Dorada. Dorada hits a moonsault off the ring post to the floor and then a 450. Goes for the handspring and is hit with a sit-out dropkick into Project Ciampa, but he survives that. Dorada elevates Ciampa on his shoulders and hits like an iconoclasm off the shoulders. That part looked cool. Goes for the moonsault and Ciampa gets the feet up and ends up transitioning Dorada into a Willow's Bell and hits the knee strike in 11 minutes, 2 seconds. So Ciampa goes in first, and they'll be doing a match on Collision to determine the second entrant with Roosh and Anthony Bowens.
So just know, they apparently already announced Takeshita versus Okada at Double or Nothing. So
when?
That's already said. I think it must have been in the segment, and we missed it. So yeah, I'm just going through our recap right now from Jack Wannon, who says, while Takeshita was against the idea of working alongside Okada, he agreed to do so under one condition: if they win, Takeshita will get to challenge for Okada's AEW title at Double or Nothing next month. Still, so yeah, you and I both must have just missed that little line in there.
Okay, well then I stand corrected. We have David Finlay in the back with the Dogs, who have laid out Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong, and they're coming after the Trios belts on Collision. Warning Speedball, Kevin Knight, and Mystico.
Mm-hmm.
Lexi is with Tekla. And
I can see a title change.
Sure.
I think the Dogs need a big win, and putting these Trios titles on them, I don't think hurts anybody. I would have liked to have seen more Jet Speed and Mystico matches, but yeah, I could certainly see a title change.
Lexi is with Tekla. This woman is just fantastic. She threatens to take Lexi Nair to a strip club, put her on the stage, and break her fingers. That's quite a unique strip club.
I'm sure it exists somewhere for the right price.
Probably one of those brothels. Hayter was the first woman that she took out when she arrived in AEW because Hayter was the easiest target and the dumbest bitch alive. And after Dynasty, you're going to be the dumbest bitch dead. Yeah. She got a t-shirt idea out of this and a nice promo to set up the match on Sunday. Mm-hmm. Out come Copeland and Christian Cage, and Copeland says that this started out of jealousy and pettiness. It's not our fault that FTR were perceived as my henchmen. That's just how the audience sees it. And Cage says that he recently paid a visit to FTR's mothers. Let me clarify that. I banged both their mothers. And I'm going to bang Stokely's mother after we win the belts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I was not enjoying this promo segment.
I mean, it is fitting for the character, and if you wanted to see how Christian is able to adapt the character for a babyface promo, I thought he did perfectly fine here. It's fun though because you get to see Adam Copeland sort of shake his head at it now. So this to me is a feud and program that hasn't necessarily overcome the delay that it's had to endure since the big moment. I don't know if they'd necessarily achieved that level of heat that they kind of left with, but it's still going to feel like a big match, I'm sure, in arena, and hopefully the match is strong enough. And you can also say, because the layoff has been so long, a tag match between these two kind of feels very fresh again.
There's always, in my mind, been at some point AEW experimenting with the tag titles, closing a pay-per-view. And I thought when this was built up, I was like, could this one be the one that they do it? And as we sit here, I don't think there's a chance of that happening at all.
No.
I'm always curious if they would ever try that, of just putting the tag belts in that position. They haven't really gotten that close, but I don't think that is going to be breaking the pattern on Sunday.
I think if they do some semblance of a TLC match, big sort of gimmick, lights out type of thing, yeah, you could.
So out come FTR and Stokely, but Trent and Romero gain revenge on Copeland and Christian for last week as they jump them from behind, and we get an attack on Copeland and Cage, ending when they put the chair around Cage's wrist, and off the turnbuckle comes Wheeler, and he snaps the arm. Stokely also did Copeland's spear onto Christian Cage as a setup for this. Stokely just looked ridiculous in this segment. And so Christian will go into this injured. Although there was that pay-per-view last year when Lashley took all those chair shots right before, and then he was completely fine at the pay-per-view. So Cage might have those recuperative abilities and just be fine by Sunday. So we'll keep an eye on that.
We'll see. We'll ask Doc Samson.
Yeah. Stokely also stole Christian's watch.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, makes the match a bit more interesting this time around with that arm injury. So I'm looking forward to it.
Haven't they now given Cage a weapon? He's gonna have a cast on.
I suppose sometimes it works out well that way. Yeah.
Darby cut a promo backstage. He says people think he doesn't care about anything when in fact he cares way too much because he puts on this facade. And the fact is he's scared that he can't win the big one. He can't be the face of AEW. Andrade doesn't realize what he's gotten himself into because I need this win more than anything. He's always been enough despite being told the opposite his whole life. I thought this was a great promo from Darby Allin going into Dynasty.
Seems like they're building him up big. Like last week I said maybe it's a TV match. No, this very clearly feels like he's a pay-per-view challenger.
I think so.
Double or nothing. Yeah.
This does feel like the match for Double or Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So Collision lineup that is being taped tonight: Okada and Myron Reed, the showdown for the international title. Young Bucks against Hechicero and El Colon. Mystico, Speedball, and Kevin Knight against the Dogs for the trios belts. Roosh and Anthony Bowens for the number 2 spot in the gauntlet. Tekla and Marina Shafir against the Brawling Birds. And it is the return of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin for what should probably be a very quick squash match.
Yep.
And our main event. It is the United Empire against the Death Riders, and what a match this was. They start in the crowd. It's insanity from the get-go. Windsor and Shafir getting involved as well. Francesco Akira, who this was this man's 2-hour audition in AEW. He brings a ladder out, climbs it inside the ring, and just leaps to the floor. Claudio is grabbing his shin, but appeared okay afterwards. Claudio saved all of the Death Riders throughout this match from near death. There's a table brought out. Ospreay and Newman worked amazingly together here. They were just in sync, doing all these like tandem spots together. Really great stuff. No hints of any dissension. And I think that would have been way too...
This is the first introduction for a lot of people to the Calvin Newman.
This would have
Will
been way
Ospreay
too complicated if you were teasing dissension between Ospreay and Newman. The focus was to introduce the United Empire as a united front here.
Exactly. This is the start. This is Will Ospreay bring his friends along. Then you can take a seat for the breakup story.
Yes. Hanare at one point fights all 4 by himself and takes them down, and he goes to put Garcia through the table. This is when Claudio makes the save. Moxley tears apart a kendo stick and starts stabbing Ospreay in the eye, and then puts the kendo stick up the goddamn nostril of Will Ospreay as Excalibur. We've never seen that before. Always a new orifice to explore.
Yeah.
We get Ospreay and Newman coming back with double os cutters onto Garcia and Moxley. Hanare hits the rampage to Claudio, putting him off the steps through a table on the floor. And then Francesco Akira meets the unknown tag partner of the Death Riders, that being this table that he chose, as he power bombs Garcia so hard onto this table, it doesn't break. So we cut away. There's some other action. We go back and we see Akira leaping off the apron. He goes so high like a make good. The table doesn't break from the guy's splash. I think Daniel Garcia was dead at this point, or at least his ribs were turned into powder. This was the most uncooperative table I maybe have ever seen, and Akira was putting everything into trying to break it.
He did unfortunately overshoot the dive a little bit, but yeah, I guess maybe the tables are a bit tougher here.
Newman puts Pac through the table with an Excalibur, no problems on his end. And then Ospreay takes multiple paradigm shifts. Newman comes in, saves Ospreay, and sets up Moxley in the corner to take a hidden blade into a table that smashes, and the two pin Moxley in 20 minutes and 50 seconds. A blowaway, excellent match that I think should be Anarchy in the Arena, because they did such an amazing job here. And I think that Sunday's match should be like Moxley, like it should be a really gruesome battle that they go the time limit and you can come back with Anarchy in the Arena. I think that's a good direction to go.
I think so too. Like a match can be so good that I don't think you'd be disappointed at a time limit draw. Especially if like this seems to be a very long-term story that they
this match was longer than what we're going to get on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, you're right. But they have stories to tell for Forbidden Door that you already kind of have the genesis for, and then maybe beyond that. Not to mention the matches that can take place on the New Japan shows, whether it be stateside and also in Japan itself. I thought this match was so good, man.
I thought this was excellent. Like you could see these United Empire guys, they were coming out to just have like the performance of their lives in front of a big audience, and I just thought they all did great here. But Hanare, to me, just leaped through the screen. Akira just did everything imaginable in this match to get himself over. And I thought Newman, like the chemistry with Ospreay was just fantastic. Like he was kind of like the close associate of Will Ospreay, and just, you can mix and match so many of these pairings. If like this certainly felt like an introduction rather than just some one-off with the United Empire.
And I think it, like, I had thoughts that maybe like, this sort of showcase in a Double or Nothing, or sorry, in an Anarchy in the Arena, might have been like too good of a real estate for Tony Khan to give to people in another promotion. But like, you look at the result of this, and like you just kind of like hear the type of like, like wrestling fan Tony Khan is. I don't think he worries about that. Like I think ultimately he just wants to provide like excellent wrestling, and I can certainly see this taking that spot with the inclusion of Alex Windsor and Marina Shafir, just to kind of fill it out with the 5 and to also add the female element in there. But this match itself didn't need any of that tonight. Like they didn't need a cage, they didn't need Anarchy in the Arena. This was just a great wrestling match with a little bit of kendo stick up the nostrils thrown in there. Man, I also think they did a great job of establishing Callum Newman and Will Ospreay's relationship here. If the idea for this crowd tonight, for an AEW audience, is to establish that Callum Newman is Will Ospreay's protege, who now is the IWGP champion, I think they managed to achieve that really well with their stereo offense. And that, of course, sets the course for their eventual match that's already being heavily teased, in New Japan. But I never thought about this. Like, could Forbidden Door be a place? Yes. When you do Ospreay versus Newman.
Remember what the match was at Forbidden Door last year? It was the lights out steel cage match where Ospreay gets taken out by Moxley. Like you could play it full circle, where this year it's Ospreay gaining his revenge in the same match with the United Empire, and that's his last obstacle before All In.
Well, I actually was saying Ospreay versus Newman.
Ospreay and Newman. I thought you meant this tag.
They're building that so much on New Japan. I don't know if they would, put that for Forbidden Door, but like, could a chapter of Ospreay Newman take place? I wonder. I just wonder. It's just a possibility I never really thought about. But there's a lot, and it shows the continued strength of this New Japan AEW relationship by having so much like crossover that makes it a lot of fun to watch if you're keeping up with everything.
So Ospreay went for he teased the Tiger Driver after, and Claudio saved Moxley afterwards. So it is interesting as well, the contrast, because on Saturday at Sakura Genesis, it's Ospreay that was sort of the one that was leery of how deadly this United Empire is and how far they will go. And here in AEW, it's Ospreay that is the one that is out for blood and trying to destroy Jon Moxley. So it's like he's playing,
but he's not cheating.
He's not, but it's like that was the whole story on Saturday, was that like we don't cross a certain line, and This is, Ospreay wanted to take this guy's head off.
They are telling separate stories in a way, but like depending on I guess the location and the audience, I feel like it could be all adapted to make sense.
Yeah. I do foresee a lot of state of New Japan panic coming out as of this, which I don't necessarily
going to get that.
I mean,
Yeah.
that.
But
it's
was this bad for New Japan? What you got tonight, the fact that the United Empire and Callum Newman as IWGP champion got this sort of stage,
as long as you have ultimately that benefit. But I think this
they
is
will
the
never
reality.
Enjoy that. They will never enjoy that security because there's a lot more money to be made over here.
Every single person on the New Japan roster, save for like your lifers, like I think Toru Yano and Toki Makabe are there to stay. But generally, anyone there under the age of 35 is ripe for the picking. And that's just the reality. You're going to be like the days of having an Okada that you can build the next 15 years around. Those are done. Those days are done. And it's just get as much as you can out of these performers. Hopefully there's a value. And I would still look at Callum Newman that like there's a lot of value to him staying in New Japan at 23 and having that experience as a top guy. But it's going to be very hard if he suddenly, you can list off all those reasons that New Japan is beneficial. If he were presented with a contract when he's contractually free and you see those zeros and all of like making it in the US, that's what is going to drive so many of these guys. It's making it with one of the big companies in the US and making a living that you couldn't fathom when you started in wrestling.
If you're Hiroshi Tanahashi, I can't imagine you'd be upset at all by the way your faction the Death Riders on AEW TV tonight.
And then the final segment, Tony Schiavone brings out Kenny Omega, and why don't you take us through the last 2 hours of Dynamite here?
Yeah, obviously, I don't know who went long, but like, they still had a whole, face-to-face segment to do on the Go Home show here ahead of Dynasty. But you had Kenny Omega come out. He's dressed really nicely in a big suit.
This was the nicest Kenny has ever looked. Like shorts. Like he just came off like a 5-hour gamer session backstage. I mean,
this is serious Kenny Omega here. So he says it's been 25 years since he's been to Edmonton, and he feels nostalgic as a result. And for that reason, he feels like we're kind of friends. And so he's going to be honest, like we are friends. He says, last week I lost my cool, and if it wasn't for Speedball, I would have put everything into jeopardy. And why did I lose my cool? Was it because MJF mentioned Kota Ibushi? No. Was it because he mentioned diverticulitis? No. You mean the thing that every announcer talks about in every one of my matches? No, that's not it. Like, so this to me, like, was him completely writing off even diverticulitis being any sort of like relevant plot point in this match anymore. Like, he just kind of like, again, coupled with the Doc Samson thing, seemed to really just sweep it away.
I did like I did catch the beginning of this promo where he joked about like commentary bringing this up in every single match, which is not an exaggeration in the least.
I don't think you blame commentary for that. Like it's
a little much. Like we hear it a lot of this guy.
So have we heard the last of it? And by this point, are we talking about Kenny Omega completely done with diverticulitis?
No. I think it'll still be a defining trait on every match of his.
He says what actually pissed him off and made him lose his cool was MJF talking about the whole God of Wrestling thing, and he takes it seriously. He says he wants AEW to be where the best wrestle. At first it used to be a concept, but MJF, you are known not necessarily for your wrestling, but for your talking. People used to talk shit at me, but pro wrestling is what I am the best at. And MJF, you should have been the one to lose your cool because there's no way you can do what I do in the ring. But instead, I lost my cool, and because I thought it was my responsibility to save this place, but I'm wrong. It's not my responsibility. It is our responsibility. As he speaks to the crowd, he says it's our legacy. He says I'm not the same Kenny Omega since diverticulitis, but now I value the hard work a lot more. So he says he will take his title from MJF and he will start to right the wrongs that MJF wrote in this company. He says this version of Kenny can promise that. So it was a very much more serious and I would say strong Kenny Omega promo than I think we've heard throughout the entirety of this program. One of the best Kenny promos I would suggest we've heard with him being in a babyface role. So very, very strong promo from Kenny. Then, of course, we had MJF come out here who says, Kenny, you were talking about me like you're better than me in 2026. And he acknowledges that, Kenny, you might be getting better at this talking thing. But this shot on Sunday will be your last shot at the championship. You brought up our last match where you had an excuse. You were at 75%. The doctors say that you are 100%, so what will be your excuse come Sunday? You will find out that you're not on the level of the devil. Your God would fail. the devil will rise because I'm MJF and I'm better, and you know it. Kenny says, so if you are an honorable champion, that means you probably shake my hand, right? So instead, MJF does not shake his hand. He turns around, turns back to try to attack him, but Kenny is ready for it. Hits him with the V-trigger, lays him out. But before he does that, he takes MJF's diamond ring as if to take it out of play. Says some sort of a trash-talky line, which I did not note here, unfortunately. But then he just throws the ring back. I guess that's if to say, I can take this from you at any point. I don't know. I'm not sure. But he took the ring, wore it, delivered a line, threw the ring back at him. So I feel like we're not going to get the ring for some reason on Sunday. But that was it. Strong go-home segment, I felt.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Well, there you go, everyone. That was Dynamite. And if you got the Triller experience, it came in at a nice 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then you got the 13-minute. The overrun was on my AEW.
Yeah, more advertising for my AEW.com, I suppose. But John and I will be going through our previews and predictions for the entire AEW Dynasty card, along with reading your feedback to tonight's edition of Dynamite over on the XL edition.
That's where we are going now. We're going to say goodbye to everyone on the YouTube side, but we've got Ask Away dropping Thursday, Rewind to SmackDown on Friday, and Way and I will be back right here live Sunday night after Dynasty. So goodbye to everyone on the YouTube channel.